Welcome back to another episode, and I'm very excited to have Claire Gallagher on the show today. Claire Creative. You are a strategy coach that helps solo coaches and creatives show up online. And we were just talking about a little thing that you use to see if you're having success, which I want to get to in a little bit. But I want to have you talk more about your story and how you got into what you do now, because I know as entrepreneurs and women and mothers and all of the things ourselves, often we have pretty interesting roads that we've woven together.
There's always a story when there's somebody who
Yeah.
works for themselves. There's some epiphany moment or rock bottom moment that inspires change. Mine wasn't so dramatic. I had my boy, I had my son, and that kind of triggered the whole thing.
Mm,
Should I just get into the whole backstory? Are
yeah,
we are
do
we,
it.
are we going
Yeah,
straight into it?
let's
Let's do
go.
it. Okay, so way back many a year ago, I met a lovely Frenchman on a dance floor in Dublin
Oh,
and decided I must learn French. Um, so we moved to Paris in inverted commas for a year, and that was 13 years ago, and we're still in France. So the jig is
nice.
up. I guess we're staying. Um, and when we moved to Paris and the energy of the city, I had always wanted to work in the art world.
Mm,
So I had the opportunity to work as a digital projects manager for a gallery in the center of Paris, doing the fairs, doing the exhibitions and everything. And just by getting into that network, I met so many people who needed websites.
mm, mm.
So that it came a point where that became feasible for me to step into that as a full-time thing, to be completely independent. I had always kind of freelanced. Graphic design is a very easy thing to freelance in. So even before moving to Paris, I had traveled with that to London and Melbourne and various other places around the world. So travel and graphic design go very well together. But it was when I had my boy, my first child, I realized that I needed the kind of the flexibility, and I wanted to kind of have agency on my own schedule and
Mm,
really be able to do my own thing with my time and not have to ask permission to leave to go somewhere, and as sometimes happens in agency work. Um, so fast forward a couple of years into having a little baby and working all the time, saying yes to everything that came my way, building WordPress websites with a baby on one arm and a mouse in the other hand. And a moment came when I thought, this is a little bit crazy here. I'm burning myself out because I was doing a lot of work, like really, really saying yes to absolutely everything and saying no to a lot of stuff in my personal life. Like,
yeah, and I feel like that's the thing that we get into. We think that being an entrepreneur is going to free up our time, but
yeah,
then we get afraid to say no to things. And then we end up not having, like you said, the time. I mean, I don't remember the last time I went on vacation and it was just vacation and I didn't check email
yeah.
and say, oh, I have to run to a meeting and, take time away from my family. Um,
Even when you have a social media strategy in place, you're kind of always thinking about content that you'll create,
yeah.
or sharing a part of your vacation as a success
Mm,
story of how well you're doing. So there was a point at which that I realized that my work life balance was way out of whack, really far out of whack. Um, and that's really when I started to focus on strategy rather than just websites.
yeah.
Because I think I work with a lot of people who work solo. I work solo. I work with a lot of people who work solo. So I'm acutely aware of that thing that we just talked about. Saying no to things is really, really scary because there's nobody who's got our back in that situation. There's no kind of backup. It's kind of all down to you. And
Mm.
that's when I started really focusing on strategy and helping other people with the same kind of thing. So
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really important because a lot of people think you just slap up a website. They don't necessarily put as much thought into it. And this isn't just for solo entrepreneurs, it's small businesses of all
mm,
ilks. I've worked with a lot of them that had a family member put up a website for them and it doesn't really speak to who they are. It doesn't
yeah,
have, the branding, all of that stuff is missing. And
yeah.
so I definitely want to talk about that. And I know some of the things that you like to talk about are getting out of your own way
Yeah.
so that you can show up. And then how do you create a digital strategy?
So the getting out of your own way is, it's a surprising, it can take you by surprise, really, because you don't like like self-sabotage is something else, but it's similar in a way that we block opportunities for ourselves for whatever reason, imposter syndrome, or really stepping out of your comfort zone, or really punching higher than you usually punch to kind of step forward. And then we subconsciously, unintentionally, without realizing, we block things. I sometimes refer to it as like not being able to take a compliment. You know,
Oh,
sometimes when somebody wants to really give you, like, say thanks in a big way. I mean, I don't know about anybody in your audience here, but sometimes when a client comes back to me and they say thanks and it was great and you're amazing and this happened and this success, and I was like, oh no, it's all down to you and you're, I always like tennis whack it back in their
yeah.
direction and say, no, 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 it's not me, it's you. So I'm blocking that compliment. And in a way, when people are coming to you for work and you feel like it's a bit too big or it's something that you're not qualified to do, we'll kind of step back with the doubt and everything like that. It's kind of, there's many ways that we get in our own way in those kind of situations. Not showing up being one of the key ones.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm familiar with that. It's interesting when I've had clients come in and I'm like, well, I can't work with them because I'm not an expert in their field. And then when I start working them, I'm like, oh, but this is, I can do this, you know. I just have to approach it like I do any other client and their strategy. And it doesn't really matter. It's just other publications that we'll be reaching out to, or
Yeah.
other trends that we need to look into for their, you know, if it's construction, which is not something I'm as familiar with, but I've had a couple of clients recently. And before I would have said, oh no, I can't take that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, but now I'm surrounded by all these other people who know. But then I'm like, oh, but I'm still the one with my team doing the work. And so yeah, I'm completely capable. And I think
Yeah.
that self-doubt that we have, and that, like you said, also not wanting to appreciate when people give us compliments, wanting to deflect, because we have those blockages where we feel we don't deserve things, um,
Mm,
perhaps, or we, you know, we
yeah.
don't have that self-confidence because we get overlooked, you know,
Yeah.
or we, like in my case, I was out of the job market for a while. I did other things. Then I got divorced, had to come back to the job market. And I was like, oh gosh, I haven't had a regular job for so long. Am I going to be able to get one? Or what am I, you know, or am I going to be able to, will people see my value?
Yeah. It's something, because when you're in a moment of so much change, I mean, changing your relationship status and your job situation, and maybe having kids in the mix somewhere as well. I mean, you're stretched so thin that thinking of stepping outside of your comfort zone in work as well and in the service that you provide, it's just, sometimes you just gotta keep your balance in whatever way you can, especially in the last couple of years of how
Yeah.
everything has been changing. Um, but that's stepping out of your comfort zone and approaching new markets. And that's come up for me recently, like taking on a client who isn't my typical client, and then you step into it and you realize, well, the theory is pretty much still the same. And you're if you're a creative problem solver, which I think most business owners are, it's a huge learning experience, and it's going to help you step
Yeah.
up to another level, maybe.
Yeah. Nice. I like that approach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
always be learning.
definitely. So when you start working with somebody, because I know you want to make sure that they're showing up as their true authentic self. And
Yes.
I know in the PR world, sometimes I always want clients to be willing to talk about themselves and share their story, but a lot of times they're reluctant to, and they want to hide behind the product, and they think, oh, well, the product is going to sell itself. I'm like, well, but you are the brand, you are the
Yeah.
actual product.
Hmm.
You know, that is the big differentiator between what you're doing and the next, you know, widget, between your widget and the next widget out there. So how do you approach that from your creative strategy viewpoint and get people and pull that out of people?
I love that. I love this question. I really, really do, because the people that I work with, they're pretty much working on their own. They might have a VA, but it really, they're the face of the brand. They're the one doing all of the work in the brand. They're delivering the service and doing all of the other things, they feel like it might feel too, they might feel too exposed or vulnerable if they're stepping up there, especially like I work up with a lot of creatives like designers.
Mm.
A lot of them are quite introverted,
Yeah.
and the little switch, there's a little switch that I kind of encourage people, a little mindset trick to help people to show up, in that it's not about you. It's not about you. It's how you are of service to others. It's
Mhm.
how your product or service is going to help somebody else or bring joy to somebody else. And it's not really about you. They don't really care about you unless you are the person bringing the solution to them. So we fear that people are going to point and stare. Most people, in my experience, kind of wish you well. They kind of they're happy that you've showed up and shared a story or shared some kind of insight. And it's just that little switch between creating content or running promotions to remember that it's not about you, but it's how you are of service to others. I don't know about your experience, but most people who start businesses, they've done it for some passion or mission, or
Yeah.
there's really something driving them behind. And it's a matter of reconnecting with that and remembering it's about the people that you're
Yeah.
helping with how you show up.
That's such a good point. I completely agree with you. My my partner is a creative in the film industry, and he was always of the mindset of, oh, you just create a project, you put the film out, and then people see it, and it's like,
Yeah,
well,
if you
no,
build it, they will come.
yeah, there's so much more work that has to go into it, and so whether it's in the website perspective and other creative aspects, making sure that he's showing up front and center when he doesn't necessarily want to be. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, because he is that kind of introverted. He's an extroverted introvert, I guess you would say. Like when he's with people, he can talk, and but
yeah,
yeah, but he'd rather just stay at home and be a hermit.
yeah. Oh my
But
goodness, that's me. That's
yeah.
me. I'm I love to talk. I could talk all day long, but I will need to be quiet for a while afterwards and
Mm-hmm.
recharge and refuel. I think a lot of creatives have that, and that's in that kind of recharging, that quiet time. That's where a lot of ideas come from, because you're absorbing all of that you learned in the loud room, and the conversations that you're having. And I find, like what you're just saying there about creating the thing isn't enough. Distributing it and sharing it and talking about it is, it's like maybe 60% of the work, 40% of it is the work. And I find a lot of creatives, or people who make things, if it's content or products or services, sharing the work, like sharing your portfolio, sharing your case studies, sharing your testimonials. It's one of those ways that we get in our own way by not sharing it and thinking, oh, well, I don't know who wants to see this. But it's kind of nothing to do with you. It's about what that what that does when it gets in front of somebody else.
Yeah, so it's
And that kind of helps because it takes the spotlight off you.
yeah, and it's like removing that ego that
Mm,
we might not think we have, but we have, and that's what gives us that fear, right?
yeah,
And that discomfort with moving forward on things that will actually benefit other people, and then thereby benefit ourselves.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, it's so true. To really just to get out there. Ego is such a our ego is in there trying to protect us and keep us safe, but sometimes it keeps us too safe that nobody ever finds out about our stuff.
Yeah. So you also walk your clients through, because there's so much, right? There's so much information
Mm,
these days, and you
yeah,
sometimes you don't know where to start. And you have your website, you might have a newsletter, a blog, social media, all of these different digital breadcrumbs,
yeah.
right? And people can get so overwhelmed by that. So how do you ditch that overwhelm and help create that strategy for people?
That's a really good question, because the overwhelm, it's always kind of trying to knock at your door.
Hmm.
And we receive more information now in a day that people 100 years ago maybe did in their entire lifetimes, and our poor little creative brains are trying to get through it all and process it. And something that I do and I share on social media, I show up mostly on Instagram and YouTube. Um, Something I do each Friday is I publicly post in my stories, I'm uninstalling the app now. I'm going to
Oh,
be offline all weekend. So that's just something I do to have weekends to be as little screen time as possible, just to allow myself to digest the week.
Hmm.
When it comes to, that's just something that I do personally because I need to kind of
Yeah.
come back full, not frazzled on Monday. I want to come back and fully be present with my clients from Monday through Friday. Um, but with digital strategies that I help people to create, a lot of the initial work is finding out about their energy resources, their temperament, and ultimately where they can show up and how that overlaps with their ideal client and the people they're
Nice.
actually trying to reach, because we can do all of the channels, but I think unless you're working with a team, you really should focus on your key channel,
Yeah.
so that you're pushing one item forward by a mile rather than 10 things by an inch. You know, you can inch yourself forward and divide your attention. Social media is this kind of, it's literally designed to be addictive.
Yeah.
It's literally designed to pull you in and keep your attention. But there's more things to life than your grid or your feed. So I encourage people to choose a platform, create boundaries there. Maybe they're uninstalling at the weekend, maybe their busiest time is at the weekend and they switch off a little bit in the evenings during the week. But to create legitimate boundaries there, that when they cross those boundaries, they're aware of it. And then when
Ah.
they feel that sting after, oh, I stayed on Twitter all night last night and
Oh,
now I'm feeling a
no.
little crazy. So just to kind of to know that, to know when you've crossed your own boundaries and to feel the effect of that, so that you know what's healthy for you, really.
Yeah.
Social media is only very one possibility for a digital marketing strategy. Some people don't do it at all,
Mhm.
which that does still exist, that people don't do
Wow.
social media at all. Less, but it's still an option for people who want to show up in an entirely different way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of the overwhelm too is when you're creating something, even if you are a creative creating something, a lot of times you'll you'll get bombarded with all these messages of, oh, you have to have a Facebook group, you have to do this,
Yeah,
you have to do that, you have there's this is the formula and everybody has to follow this. And I completely agree with you. Showing up really well on one channel and one part and having that be where you know that your customer is living, that
yeah,
you're going to reach that demographic, and that it
mm,
ties back to the narrative you're weaving with your website and anything else
exactly.
that you're doing is so important. Is there
Exactly.
one social media platform that you're seeing is more useful right now than others for your
It,
clients?
for my clients particularly, we have a little gang on Instagram. We talk to each other all the time.
Oh, nice.
Instagram is our kind of our main hub where
Mhm.
I interact with the same people over and over again. And I grow slowly there, but I grow intentionally. I don't run ads there. Um, but for each of my clients, it really depends. So this is where the assumptions come in, actually. So we make a lot of assumptions. I'm on Instagram. I like Instagram. I guess everybody's on Instagram, but
Ah,
that's not always the truth. I have some people who do only LinkedIn now. I have some people who do only Twitter now. I have some people who do only YouTube, and it's kind of half social media channel, half search engine. So it's a
okay.
YouTube is one of these. It's not quite the same thing. You don't have the same community spirit there. Um, but it really comes down to how your ideal client seeks to solve their problem. Where do they go when they want solutions here? Where are they spending time that it won't be inappropriate for you to be showing up and talking about the service that you offer?
Mhm.
There's a lot of maybe this is a bit of a sidetrack, but things being appropriate is something that came up like a lot in the last couple of years, where people were like, live your best life, travel here, travel there, and all their automations were still running and people couldn't go anywhere.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like it just felt so wrong. I was like getting ads for, I don't know, Airbnb or booking.com or something like that, and I was like, dude, we can't leave the
No.
house. And then other things like with conflicts breaking out in different parts of the world, it's like some people are really feeling that impact, and it feels like you need to be sensitive to what's going on for other people. Now, this, it kind of sounds a little bit abstract talking in this way, but how you show up on that chosen platform, it's important not to be tone deaf to what's going on for
Yeah.
your ideal client specifically at this time, and sensitive to what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, and something that I've seen is a client who might want PR services, but then I like to do a whole integrated marketing. So I look at their social media and their website and everything to see
Yeah.
what do they really need, right? And hone in on that. And sometimes they'll have their, okay, so say somebody is a life coach and
Yeah.
they have a great website, but then on social, on Instagram, they have biz coach and their name, but then everything that they show is personal.
Yeah.
Do you find that often, like you have to help make that transition for people? And I know for myself too, I had my personal Instagram, I had a separate business, and then I turned my personal because I had more followers into my business. And then now I've kind of made it a hybrid. And I'm like, okay, this is the final time I'm changing the name of my social media. And because it's just going to show me who I am, whether it's at work or not at work. And like, just, all the things. So do you
Yeah.
find that is an issue in helping clients kind of rethink how they are using their social or how they divide their accounts or what they're showing up as, because maybe their personal life is something they do want to keep completely separate?
Yeah, some people are still they prefer to keep their personal life personal. I mean, I don't really post pictures of my kids. Now and again, I'll put one in a story so that it expires and it's not, I don't,
Yeah.
it's not my face. It's not my face to share. It's
Mm.
my son or my daughter's face. But in terms of like sharing personal content on social media, I think all of my questions, any question I answer always ends up in saying it depends, because it
Yeah.
always depends. So again, I always point to what are the expectations of your ideal client? What will help them to trust you? What will help them to see you as the problem solver? So again, you pointed to like a life coach as an example. If they're talking about healthy work-life balance, sharing a
Mm.
picture of success there. I went to the gym at 7 a.m. this morning before I got into my day. That's, yes, it's personal, but in a way it's related because maybe they speak about a good balanced life,
Right.
or somebody who talks about nutrition, sharing a moment where they cook or share a meal as a family because that's part of the values. So in a way, it comes down to what are the expectations and how can you delight people and
Mm.
share your values and your mission with them without really compromising, the privacy of the people in your life, or feeling overexposed or oversharing. Sometimes people need to share. They feel like publicly sharing things is cathartic, and they feel like they won't back down from something that they're trying to do if they're sharing it on social media. So it depends.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I think it comes down to like that brand strategy, how you want to be perceived by people, and
Mhm.
is posting the nice burrito that you had yesterday, is that relevant? Or
Right.
is it just like, hey guys, this was actually really delicious? And it shares a little bit about yourself because people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And some of the likability stuff is like, oh, I also like burritos. Or I went to that place last week, that kind of thing. So that likability factor, it's useful to share some
Mhm.
of that stuff if you don't feel like you're really too stretching your visibility too much into your personal stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But and you make a good point there. Something that I've noticed I've been picking up on since we've started talking is um, mapping back to what is your ideal customer's pain point? How
Yeah,
are you solving their issue? So that's, I think, a really good question for people to have in mind as they're even thinking about what they're posting is, yeah,
yeah,
is it relevant? Is it authentic?
yeah.
Is it going to help them trust that you can help them achieve what they want to achieve?
Oh, it's so true. I mean, it comes down to sometimes when I work with my clients, we work on a content strategy. So
Mm, mm,
maybe people have come to me, they've already got a brand in place, or they've already got a certain amount of things in place, and they need to launch a campaign or run something in particular. And they want to do it through content. And we create a content plan because sometimes just showing up and having to create content in the
yeah.
moment, and doesn't always work. So I have a formula, a kind of a workshop
Mm,
that I do sometimes with my clients. Is like, 100 days of content.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'll map out, like it's not literally detailing every 100 days, but it's mapping out the pillars of your content.
Yeah.
So I speak about creativity, work-life harmony, and going after goals that are aligned to you. And a lot of that is threaded through my content. So today I posted about taking aligned action to show up. So not doing things that don't suit your temperament. The other day I posted about good things happen when you stop scrolling. Get off social media this weekend and get out there and do something fun if you can.
Yeah.
So like threading through the thing that I help people to do with those content pillars.
Yeah.
And it's not that every post has the same theme, but
Right.
all of the content that we're creating, people know that this is something that I stand for. A good work-life balance and going after things that are meaningful to you.
Yeah.
So and when I'm working with my clients, we set up those pillars so that we know you're never going to be stuck for ideas. Generally, people aren't stuck for ideas. It's usually too many ideas that's the problem. And we're trying to whittle it down to kind of have some kind of logic and thread and kind of theme through their content. But creating those pillars of what your content says relates back to your own personal values and that meeting point of what you can help people with and how they perceive their problem.
Mm.
That's a whole other conversation
Yeah.
about the curse of expertise, knowing too much, so much that you can't actually communicate with people who don't
Yeah.
have the same expertise.
Yeah. But I find that, I mean, going back to like thinking about the construction client, they don't know anything about marketing and PR and how they need to show up. And so helping them create, okay, what is that strategy? How do you want to show
Yeah,
up? What are your competitors doing? Let's look at that,
yeah.
right? All of those different things. So when somebody was working with you, since you've moved more into the strategy side, then do you still help them execute the creative content, the website design, or do you have a team of people that you pass them on to gently? They kind of graduate on, or how does that work?
There's a lot of co-creation happens. So
Mm.
the way that I work, it's always been with a backbone of co-creation. So I'm working with people who are really the face of their brand and things that they're creating. They're the face of it. They're the one putting it out there. They're the one responding to the comments and doing the posting and doing the videos. So they need something that is meaningful to them.
Mhm.
So the way that I work is I meet my clients and we have a Zoom call. We're sharing screens, we're creating things there, and then we're
Mhm.
writing copy, we're coming up with titles,
Oh, wow.
we're branding services. So it happens live on the call. If anybody listening has worked with a graphic designer before and the kind of, oh, it went really well in the meeting, but then they've created something and it's like,
Mm,
holy,
mhm,
holy
mhm.
moly, this isn't what I meant at all.
Yeah.
Because design is subjective. People don't have the vocabulary for fonts and
Yeah.
color palettes and is it an illustrated logo? Is it a set of
Mhm.
images? So as a designer and as somebody who creates the stuff with like co-creates with my clients, I find that they always have more ownership of what they create because I haven't gone off and worked in isolation and they haven't seen it come together. They see it come together and they feel like it's not just that they feel like it, they have created it, we've co-created it. So I can't take credit. This is why I always hit back the compliments because we always co-create. um, I think it's important to really to have like, and I'm not just talking about brand visuals, but how you're creating content and showing up and the stuff that you're putting out there to represent you. You have to have a hand in creating it for it to
Mhm.
be really meaningful and for you to know the process there so that you
Mm.
can go off and do it yourself if that is the case. Then
Yeah.
sometimes when it's a much bigger project, we'll create the strategy and the outline, and I work with associates and contractors to kind of do the big work, like developing big websites and things like that. We
Yeah.
create everything together and then it gets built by somebody else.
Well, and that was interesting that you said that you bat the compliments back because you're co-creating. But if it weren't for you, they wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have any of the creation. They wouldn't be able to pull that out of themselves because they don't know how to. So you should take the compliment because you are the catalyst.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay.
The other part of it, it goes back to the introverted side. It's that it's so much not about me. It's like they're going to go off and they're going to use these images and this strategy and these campaigns and this work. They're going to go off and be using this, and I'll have moved on to something else. There's like sometimes people work with me on a continuous basis, but basically I want to make sure that they like what they've got and they will use what they've got, and use it for as long as they can so that they're getting the value out of the project.
Nice.
And then I'll have moved on to something else, and then I'll come across them online like, oh, look at you, good for you, you're doing it, you're doing your thing. So in a way, I want them to have complete ownership of it because it is their thing. I'm just facilitating the creation of it.
Nice.
And course correcting when I feel like the course needs to be corrected.
I was just going to ask, you ever have somebody that you've worked with and then you go back and look at their content and you're like, no, they got off track, and you're like, okay, come on.
I know. It's like a helicopter parent. It's like, no, you can't do it like that. No, they generally they're excited to use it, and they just keep it going for until they want to do another campaign or something else.
Well, you talked about case studies being a great way for people to show who they are and what they do. Do you have any case studies that you'd want to share, like a client who had a really big aha moment, epiphany, or they made your changes and they implemented the co-creation and then they just immediately saw a shift in their business and their mindset?
There was I worked with I sometimes see a light come on when I'm working with people, because this is why I love Zoom. I live in the south of France and most of my clients are not here.
Yeah.
So this is why I really,
but we'd all like to visit.
It's very nice. It's very nice here. I'm not even going to be humble about it. It's gorgeous. But this is why, like, I love Zoom and I was using Zoom before everybody was using Zoom. I was in there before everybody else didn't want it to sound like that. But I need to see somebody's face, because as we're creating something, I want to see, like, because sometimes they'll be too polite to say, Claire, I hate this. What are you doing? But I'll see it on their face and I say, okay, I feel like there's something happening here that we need to correct. But it was about 2 months ago, I was working with a strategy coaching client, and she has a design business. So even though designers can design, they need somebody to kind of guide them as well sometimes. And we were going through an exercise. She was really doing that thing of, I can help anybody, or anybody could benefit from my services. And it was just, there was no focus in her work, and her portfolio was a little bit all over the place. And we just did an exercise together of, let's make a list of your completely magic wand scenario dream clients, like absolute would really love to work with these people. And as we were going through it, we realized that every single one of them was in some way related to the environment or sustainability, and she was just like, I could see the eyebrows nearly hit the ceiling. She was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize. So that was just like, that was a very important moment, because getting your ideal client right is a really, really key moment in kind of creating a strategy. And it's just gorgeous to see it. And I can see her now online, and she's doing work with all of these people, and she's in a state of flow with her work, because it just makes so much sense for her to be doing work with dream clients.
Yeah,
it's such a simple exercise.
But it's so important, because I think matching what you're really good at with what you're really passionate about is where and what your purpose is. That's where everything aligns. And that's, like you said, where things do go into a flow state and the blocks are removed, because you're not just trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see where it lands. You are being strategic. And even if you're not thinking, I'm being strategic, but just by showing up authentically with who you really are and what you want to do and who you want to work with and what you're going to solve for them, you are being strategic.
It's amazing how things that didn't seem possible before, when you align all of the areas of your business and all of the values that you have with the work that you do, it just goes crazy. It
Yeah.
really just does flow because you just care and you believe and you have that drive behind you to do that work, to do that showing up, and to, even if you're feeling a little bit shy or lacking confidence, if you believe in what you're doing and who you're doing it for, you're going to make that call, you're going to go to that event, you're going to do the things that you need to do to get to do that work. I
Yeah.
get to do this work, not I have to do this work, but I get to.
Wow. I just want to sit here and have a glass of wine with you, have a cup of
Well, I mean, it's
coffee.
evening
I'm
here.
like, yeah. Well, I mean, it's too early for me right now. I mean, I guess it is evening somewhere, but I just, yeah, I'm like, yes, we speak the same language. This is so, I love it. What are some other things that you would want to share with our audience today about how they should approach their digital strategy, and and also what to look for when if they want to hire somebody, because not everybody's going to be a match, right? And they're
Yeah.
looking for what kind of questions should they ask when they're looking for a great digital strategist to work with?
Yeah. Well, I think in my experience, people don't look for a digital strategist.
Hmm.
They don't look for
Because they don't know what they
that.
don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a technical term and it's a very niche industry term, and the word even strategy from one area of the industry to the next strategy can just mean so many different things. Some people believe that strategy is Instagram,
Right, right, right.
but generally, I think people look for ways to have a better business, a business that isn't so unkind to them.
Mm.
When looking for somebody to support you in this, um, I think it's important to work with somebody who knows the importance of setting real goals. I think
Mm.
that sounds a bit abstract, but the with all of the information and with all of the things that get marketed to you as a business owner,
Yeah.
it's easy to get pulled into the 8-figure income, and you need to do webinars, and you need to have a Facebook group, and oh no, don't do Facebook, and do this, and you're pulled in so many different directions. And intentional goal setting is something that I do with my clients. It's, let's create a picture of success, and this is where my buttery asparagus comes from.
Oh yeah.
My image of success, so really feeling it, painting a picture, creating a moment that you can aspire to. And my moment is having a nice kitchen, having good food, having enough, being in a good frame of mind, which means being not stressed with work, being
Yeah.
not short of money, being in a really good mood, and having good food, having my family around, and having asparagus with too much butter. That's like, because it's a lovely thing to do, because then and at sometimes you'll be in that moment. It might not always be asparagus, but you'll be in that moment and you go, oh, I'm in the success moment, here it is. And you can recognize it, and that aligning your vision of success and noticing when you're in it, that's so motivating. It's like, this is what I want, I have what I want, and you can appreciate that and you can have gratitude for that. So that's my intentional goal setting. And I think starting with a goal that is not something that has been marketed to you. This should be your goal. You should aim for 100,000 subscribers on whatever channel. You should aim for a mailing list that converts at 25%. These are kind of, people are telling you what your success metrics should be. But really, the only way for it to be meaningful is for you to create it and feel it.
Yeah.
So that in the tough times you can go, it's going to be worth it when I have that moment. And it doesn't have to be an 8-figure income. It doesn't have to be a 7-figure income. It can be something more meaningful to you. Mine is my family and really good food. It could be very different for the next person.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. So is there something new that you're going to be doing? Do you have any new offers, or what's next for how you want to show up for yourself and for your clients.
Mm. Well, how I show up for myself, I'm very kind to myself,
Oh, good.
really, in my business. It's almost one of my brand values that I take the month of August off every year to be with my
Ooh,
kids. That's like
okay.
a whole month off. We play, we have fun, because they're not going to want to hang out with me in another couple of years. So I'm making the most of it right now. But that's coming up for me.
Nice.
The service that I provide, I'm a digital strategy coach. I work one-on-one with people to help them show up, connect with their ideal clients so that they can get paid to do the work that they love. And that's really bottom line. It's coaching, we create stuff, and we do the things that they need to do, depending on where they are in their business also. In terms of new things, I'm running an accelerator in September,
Oh,
which is a group program. I usually work one-on-one with people because we do quite a lot of creation and it's specific to the individual, but I'm running an accelerator in September. Oh, I'm not sure when this is going out. Maybe this would be too late, but September 2022, I'm running an accelerator called Show Up, Scale Up, and I'm very excited about it.
and people can find out about it on your website, clairecreative.com. And is that what your handle is on social media as well?
It's clairecreative_com on Instagram. But if you go to clairecreative.com, all the links are there.
Yeah, nice. Is there anything that I've left out today that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I was hoping to get asked about a quote. Isn't that something that you
Yes.
do?
Well, it is. Yeah. Sometimes people have one, and sometimes people don't read the whole thing, and they don't have a quote prepared. I'd love to hear yours.
I've got one. I've got too many actually,
Oh,
but
awesome.
I've chosen one for you today. And it's something that helps me, and it helps when you're showing up online for the first time or for the first time in a long time, is that you can't know everything before you start. It's you can't. This is, when you want to launch a campaign or you launch a new service or a new product or a new business, the desire is to have everything perfect before you launch. But it's by launching scrappy and badly and iterating on it and making it better next time, that's where the real learning is. And it's by doing that that the confidence comes.
Mhm.
And so you can't know everything before you start. And it's okay to not know everything before you start. And perfect is a bad word in my house. We're
Mm,
not allowed to say perfect because it's
nice.
not achievable. But you
Yes.
can't know everything before you start. So just start.
Awesome. Great words of wisdom. Well, thank you so much for being on Your Brand Amplified today, Claire. And I really appreciated this conversation. It's a great way to start the weekend. Feel
Oh,
very
yeah.
calm and clear. Yeah. So I will put your website in our show notes and all of your socials and all of that. And audience, thank you for coming back another week and listening to Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again next week.
Thanks, Annika.
Mm.